This is Strictly Business, presented by the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Sponsored in part by the law offices of Young Wooldridge, San Joaquin Community Hospital. And now, here's your host, Cindy Pollard, President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back. I'm joined now by Marcia Sutton, who's a senior HR consultant with Barrett Business Services Incorporated, also called BBSI for short, and she's here to talk about a subject that is never, ever pleasant, but sometimes necessary, and that is the process of letting go of an employee, also known as the termination process. Good morning, Marcia.
Hi, Cindy.
Welcome back to the set.
Thank you. Thanks. Nice to be back.
So when is it necessary to let go of an employee?
Well, in my experience, it may be performance related where they're not meeting the job expectations or goals, and it's on a continual basis. There's a pattern of that. It could also be attendance or tardiness issues tend to be some of the more common type of areas as well. It may also be a policy violation. In, of course, some larger corporations, there can be codes of conduct and certain policies that need to be met.
Okay. So what steps should an employer or a manager take before terminating an employee to ensure that they remain within the law and that they're also fair to the employee?
It's a good question. When someone has a policy on progressive discipline, the main things are to keep it so that you have some flexibility depending on the severity of an incident or the behavior. But most typically, what would be a good first step would be to have a verbal conversation with the employee. And let's say it's about attendance, as is an example. So having a verbal conversation, and then if that doesn't take care of the situation, it may go to a written warning.
Okay.
You may do a final written warning or then to the termination process.
Okay.
Again, there's not like set law as far as what your discipline steps are, and most employers in California are at will, where they can end the relationship, the employment relationship, with or without notice, as well as an employee can. But what one will want to review is, what have you done in the past to be fair and consistent? And especially depending if how long someone's been there, if they've been there for quite a while and all of a sudden there's a performance or attendance issue, maybe something's changed or something else is going on. And again, like you said, definitely want to be fair with how you treat people and, give them the benefit of the doubt and act in good faith.
Okay. Now, you talked a moment ago about maybe, a written warning and then maybe a subsequent or a final warning before moving, towards the termination. How important is documentation and, what types of documentation should an employer keep?
It's good to definitely, if you're going to that stage of, the written warning, that you have that in writing and that when you meet with the employee, you ask them to sign it and give them a copy. If they refuse to sign it, it's not a big deal. Just mark that on the document. I still would give them a copy, but you just put employee refuses to sign.
Okay.
If you have, as part of the disciplinary process, that you've done an investigation, it's not necessary that you type up your notes, but take good notes about who you met with, dating them, writing down the incidents. I've actually been asked in my former HR life to fax over my notes to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing as part of an investigation. And it was also disciplinary action with the employee. So documentation, it does not have to be super formal, but write it down. If you have time to type it up, great, because it may come in to play when trying to defend yourself with a federal, state agency or possibly with an attorney.
Okay. So documentation is very important. So in addition to the notes, performance appraisals can also serve as documentation of performance or issues that have been identified that you've asked the employee to correct.
Absolutely. And if you do have corrective steps or expectations when you do your performance appraisals, hopefully you're doing them more than just once a year. You're following up with people or doing a 6-month or a 90-day if they're new. Be sure to follow up then when you've set a time frame for what you want to see and what that improvement is.
Okay.
I've seen that where people put it down and they don't. Then they come back and like, okay, I'm ready to get rid of this person now. Well, you didn't follow through
Right.
on what you told them you needed them to do as far as expectations. So sometimes it's like you start over again then on
Right.
the whole process, the whole path.
Okay. So what are some reasons that you can't use for termination?
Okay. There are protected classes,
Okay.
and probably most of us all fall in at least one, maybe more than one. But you don't want to base termination on age, religious beliefs, race, medical conditions, if someone's serving in the military, pregnancy. No, I'm not going to get them all from the top of my head.
No, but they're
that's
basically
right.
the protected classes.
Exactly.
But how does that manifest itself in the workplace? Because people are generally more sophisticated, and they don't say, "I'm firing you because you're old," or "You can't work here anymore because you're a certain color," or your religion is is just not accepted here. So when someone is maybe being wrongfully terminated based on one of those protected classes, what does it look like in the workplace that's a no-no that people should be mindful of?
Well, I do remember a situation I had where it seemed to be that a couple people that were targeted were based on a protected class. I won't say what, but just aware as an HR person that they keep the focus on the performance, on the behavior, not making it personal or about an identifying characteristic in that. The other thing I want to mention about not being able to terminate is many people could be subject to the Family Medical Leave Act, which is the federal job protection, or California Family Rights Act, or pregnancy disability leave. So again, if they're subject to those, there are strict things and timelines and notifications that have to be followed.
Okay.
As far as not terminating somebody because of those areas as well.
Okay. So let's say you've taken the proper steps, you've had your meetings, and things just still aren't getting any better, and so you've come to the unfortunate decision that there must be a termination. Who should be present at a termination meeting?
In my experience, the direct supervisor, of course, who's been giving the counselings.
Okay.
And then if you are in an organization where you have an HR person, I would have a representative too. Because they should have also been involved in the disciplinary process, especially when you get to the written notification or a final written warning. And it really shouldn't be a surprise to the person.
Right.
Most hopefully. And the other, if that's not available, like say someone's a smaller employer and they don't have an HR person, then have, an assistant manager or someone that's your kind of right-hand person that you trust with confidentiality. Because it's always good to have a witness, again, as a protection if there is legal action or some type of claim filed.
Okay. So take us through a termination meeting with an employee based on poor performance. So you come in.
Okay. So you're with the employee, and I would start out, we've met on this occasion and this other date, and we've done, a verbal and a written warning and a final written notice. And unfortunately, we haven't seen the behavior expectations that we expected as far as let's say again, it's for attendance, being here and available Monday through Friday for 40 hours a week. And so at this time, we're going to go ahead and end our employment relationship as of today. And we have your final check that pays you through today. Plus, if you do offer a vacation, that you pay out any accrued vacation.
Okay.
And, we wish you the best. And we also have some information for you on unemployment services, insurance, and unemployment insurance that you can take with you to review.
Okay.
That's a requirement that you do give the employee a notice of change in relationship and the information on EDD in the state of California.
Okay. Good deal. Makes it very easy hearing it, or appear to be easy
Appear to be
based
easy.
on your.
I would say if you ever get comfortable with it, even as long as I've been in HR, then you lose a little bit of that humanness because it still can be awkward and
It's
uncomfortable.
very emotional.
And I think the key, or I would say the key that I have felt over the years, is always to treat somebody with dignity and respect.
Absolutely.
And it's on the behavior. I think I've been fortunate because of that belief to have had limited instances of things going to a claim situation or someone getting an attorney. You want somebody to walk out with their head held high and feel respected. It just goes a long way in getting them to move forward and on another path that's right for them.
Okay, and I think we have less than a minute at
Okay.
this stage. But one last final question: what sort of follow-up needs to take place after an employer relationship is ended?
From a legal standpoint, if you do offer medical benefits, you'll want to be sure that that person gets their COBRA information, which is a federal law that gives them the right to continue benefits.
Okay.
You would also, as a courtesy, make sure you update your other employees as to this
Right.
person's no longer here. Don't go into details. And from an administrative piece, make sure that, key cards or technology, computers are turned off or that, that type of thing, kind of as a little ABC. And there may be other things too that you need to do.
Yeah. Great. Great tips for employers and managers. Hopefully they won't ever need to use them, but should they do, very helpful information. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Cindy.
I'm Cindy Pollard with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll be talking with Greg Gallion from Houchin Community Blood Bank. Stay with us. We'll be right back.